Welcome to the next episode of Navigating Carbon, your compass to carbon management. As always, I'm your host, Deb Ryan. This week, I sat down with Kelly Hess, CEO of CompuCycle, an IT asset recycling and reuse firm. This continues the conversations that we've been having around waste and the circular economy. We all know that we have electronics lying around and don't necessarily know what to do with them. And CompuCycle has figured that solution out. Kelly gave a really good overview of the scale of electronic recycling, i.e., just how little of it actually happens, and talked about the work they do around the reuse of equipment, recycling of the valuable components, and then breaking down the rest of the equipment into raw materials like plastic and steel. The other big aspect around electronics that I hadn't considered, and Kelly spends time talking about, is what happens to all the data that's stored on all of these devices and the importance of the data destruction, not just the actual equipment itself. I know I learned a lot from Kelly through this conversation, and I hope you do too. To make sure you don't miss out on any new episodes, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. But for now, sit back and enjoy my conversation with Kelly. Hey everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Navigating Carbon. Today I'm joined by Kelly Hess. How are you, Kelly?
I'm great. Thank you, Deb. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to have you. It's gonna be a fun conversation. So you're the CEO of a company called CompuCycle. So let's talk about what you guys do. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we are a Houston-based women-owned electronic recycling company. So we handle IT asset disposition and handle secure data destruction, data center decommissioning, and really anything that we can do with corporations to make their IT asset disposal easier is what we focus on, and cannot believe we've been in business now for 30 years. I became CEO 11 years ago and been with CompuCycle for 15 years now. And we really try just to help organizations and companies manage their technology when it reaches its end and be able to responsibly, securely, and safely recycle the equipment.
No, that's awesome, right? And like we all have like old phones and old laptops, right? Sitting in desk drawers and all this kind of stuff. So actually having like an outlet and an avenue for that, particularly for corporations, is huge, rather
Yes.
than it just going in the trash. So,
And what's really so important too, I just want to stress, is that CompuCycle really is so much more than just a recycler, because we're handling data security, reuse, remarketing, recycling, material recovery, and sustainability. We've really realized that it is not just an electronic recycling decision for corporations to use us. It really is a risk reduction and a brand protection decision when choosing an electronic recycler.
that makes sense. And it's to your point, like, again, like we all know we're supposed to scrub those, computers and all these kinds of things and stuff, but it's, it's not something that we always remember to do, when we hand that phone back in, if we do even hand it back in. And so in terms of like, I know you're Houston based, but like,
Yes.
how big is like this problem? Like, again, we all are using electronics all the time. Like,
Yeah, no, it's major. Would you believe over 80% of electronics are still not recycled properly in landfill?
Wow.
So a major problem. And we work every day trying to educate corporations and residents how important it is to be able to responsibly recycle. And, more than anything too, what's kind of cool and different about CompuCycle is that we're not only a recycler, we're also a processor. So what that means is, like, most electronic recyclers are sorters. They're going through what can they reuse, what can they resell, but then the rest of it goes to downstreams. And unfortunately, it's those downstreams where the landfilling, the exporting, or finding things on eBay happens. So what we did is we put a processing plant in. So we have a multi-million-dollar processor next door to our facility that everything that we are not able to reuse and resell is going to go next door to that processing plant and turn into its raw materials. The steel, the plastic, the boards, aluminum, copper goes directly to the mills, smelters, and refineries to be recycled. So you truly can sleep at night knowing that your material is recycled the right way and is not going to show up where it shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, the size of that problem is huge, right? The fact that that it's still so little that is actually recycled and things like that. And that's I assume that's this is a global problem, right? Like everyone
Oh,
has phones and computers and all sorts of things. Like that's huge. Like,
absolutely. When you think
yeah,
about a corporation, or
yeah,
really, let's just say residents. Residents, everyone has their junk drawer at home, that has the old cell phones, the chargers, the iPads, whatever you might have at home. And then think about a corporation and
yeah,
multiply that by 10, 50, 100,000 employees. And
yeah.
it really is immeasurable about how much of an e-waste is a problem, and especially when it isn't recycled the correct way.
Yeah, that's crazy. And like, so you talked about some of the, you started listing off all those different things. I assume, like, everyone thinks about, computers and phones as a default and things like that. But I assume
Sure.
all sorts of electronics have
Oh,
really valuable components and things like that. Like, just talk about sort of some of the different components and electronics and some of the stuff that you guys focus on as well, like across the whole spectrum, not just
yeah,
phones
no,
and computers.
absolutely. We talk
Yeah.
about less laptops, we talk about desktops, we talk about servers, networking equipment, monitors, mobile devices, data center infrastructure and equipment, all of that type of stuff. Like really almost anything that you can power in and plug in,
Oh, really?
that is something that we recycle.
Yeah. And the monitors piece to me is really interesting, right? Because it's like trying to get rid of monitors. I've tried to get rid of monitors before. It's difficult.
Yes.
So you guys providing that solution is huge for companies in terms of all, I remember when we all had those, initially when we all had two screens, but they're all tiny, right? Like,
Right.
so companies
Right.
have like inventories of these everywhere, like in old warehouses and stuff. So like, I imagine for, working with you guys, it's almost a relief for them not have to store that stuff anymore as well.
Well,
Like,
and it's so funny because, like, for residents and at home, like, an old laptop or something is just considered clutter. But,
yeah.
for corporations that have thousands of retired assets, that becomes an issue of data security and like financial and environmental liabilities if they're not
Mm.
managed correctly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
when I think about like e-recycling, electronic recycling, I automatically just go to copper. Like, right? Like I know that copper is necessary in wiring. Like that's about all I know about it. So like explain, like I'm really curious about some of the different components. Like you mentioned that you're pulling out the bits that are valuable, but then you're recycling the rest. Like I'm really curious about like what are some of those other than copper? And I mean, copper's, I assume, one of them, but like, what are some
Sure.
of those other components? And like, what are the things that are also really valuable when you're doing this, like recycling versus stuff that just kind of goes downstream for recycle and
Well,
stuff? So,
and right now with the commodity markets, like, it really is crazy. But like, for us to be able to mine our own rare earths, like,
mm,
minerals. So like when we're talking about copper, aluminum, steel and ferrous metals, circuit boards that contain recoverable precious metals, various plastics, and really other commodity streams that we can find during the process of, dismantling the equipment. But when it comes like, to RAM and memory and all this type of stuff right now that is really, there's so much value to a computer that might look obsolete to someone isn't waste to us. There
yeah.
really is great value and resources that we want to be able to separate and return to use in that form.
Well, and I feel like, you mentioned critical minerals. I feel like it's all I hear about these days, right? In terms of critical minerals, supply chains, the importance of critical minerals. Like, I imagine there's a lot of demand for then what you guys are doing because instead of this stuff, my husband talks about how one day we'll go back to landfills and like mine for all the batteries everyone's thrown out because it's going
Yes.
to be so valuable. But like, I imagine there's a huge demand, just like you said, like commodity pricing wise. Just talk about that and like how some of your customers are really, I assume excited to partner with you guys as well on alternative sources of all this stuff. So,
No, but I think your husband might be onto something. Like I have heard, discussions about people going to landfills now, and it's like really kind of the essence of urban mining. Recovering the materials from products that we've already manufactured,
yeah.
rather than treating the products as trash. And there are so many resources that unfortunately have been landfilled over all these years. So I definitely don't think it's far off
Mm.
from that happening. But it's funny because there's really electronics have like there's some have more values than other, but there's really
Okay.
two types of value. The first is really the reuse value.
Okay.
So like a newer laptop, phone or server or a piece of networking equipment that usually is 5 years or younger really does have the life to live. and we
Mm.
can refurbish it and we can resell it and we can give value back to our customer for it.
Okay.
But
So
the,
like, so that bit, just so I understand this. So that's like actually just as that phone or as that computer and as that piece of equipment that still, turns on and works and functions. Yeah. Okay.
correct.
Cool. Yeah,
So
that makes
that we
sense.
can reuse, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. And then
Yeah.
then there's the second value, which is the commodity or material value. And that was like if the equipment can no longer be reused and resold, but it does contain the valuable metals or circuit boards, plastics, and any of these other recovered materials, we can truly be able to reuse and recycle that. So when you talk about kind of CompuCycle's hierarchy, it's reuse first when
Okay.
appropriate, recover the maximum value, and then securely recycle what cannot be reused.
I like that. That's really
Yeah.
cool. And, and it makes sense then, like when I have worked at corporations and, the laptop will be like this is a refurbished laptop. And that's exactly what you're talking about in that
Yes.
context. So for everyone that's working at big corporations, maybe it's gone through a lot of the people I know are working at big corporations in Houston. So maybe it went through the facility. So, which is really cool. But,
And for sustainability, I just think it's like so important. Whatever we can reuse and give more life to, like just for corporations, especially for their
mhm.
sustainability goals. And we do provide like incredible sustainability reports and
Oh, that's
environmental
cool.
report cards to corporations.
Yeah.
So we can show them what has been diverted from landfill, what's the
Oh,
reduction
very
of
cool.
carbon footprint. And we can show like how much aluminum, how much copper, plastic, all that type of stuff has been recycled. So from a sustainability standpoint, we can provide a lot of great information too.
That's huge. So I was giving a presentation the other day and to people that aren't familiar with the sustainability space and talking about the scope 3 challenges that companies have in terms of their scope 3 emissions. And so, the fact that you guys are able to provide that, on the electronic side for companies, I'm not going to say it's unusual and stuff, but it's amazing.
No, it
I'm
is. It's
assuming,
wonderful.
yeah, I assume companies respond really well to that as well as part of just, the service that CompuCycle is providing. So, which is
It's just
amazing.
no longer trash. Like, that's what I've
Mm,
really been trying to educate is like, everyone who, and years ago when I started even, it was always like electronic recycling was just the waste, the trash, and trying to really change that thought that there's so much value and
yeah,
recoverable resources that we can give to our world and earth, by able to just recycling the right way.
yeah. No, it's so true, right? Like we're so quick, and again, in a day and age where a lot of even computers and things like that are so cheap now, like the want to just go out and buy a new one versus fix, it's almost like undoing years of like, oh well, I can just buy a new one, right? It's just easier and cheaper to buy a new one. So it's like, how do we retrain people that maybe that's not the best answer sometimes, which is
Correct.
challenging. I assume for corporations on a large scale, that makes it, from an economic point of view, that starts making a lot of sense as well, though, which is awesome in terms of the
Yes.
recycling piece. Um, I'm curious then, you were talking about, and I know you guys have the dedicated facility and stuff. Just talk a little bit about like how big that is. And I'm curious, like, and I don't know if you've got some of this off the top of your head, but like give people a sense of like, what volume are you putting through that facility? Like either on a,
Yeah.
weekly or annual basis or whatever, like really curious just with like the volume of stuff you guys are processing. Like it's
Yes, no,
fascinating.
absolutely. I'm so proud to give you some of these
Yeah.
numbers because we process over 24 million truly 24 million pounds a year of
Wow.
e-waste. So
Oh my
we're actually
goodness.
able to process 40 to 60,000 pounds a day in our processing facility.
Wow.
So we have right now we're an 80,000 square foot facility that's dedicated to refurbishment. And then we've got the 50,000 that is our processing plant. So we're a
Yep.
total of 130,000 square feet.
Wow.
But again, processing, material every day. And then we also have an e-plastics plant. So we're one of the very, very few electronic recyclers in the country that has dedicated themselves also to see the problem of e-plastic. And that unfortunately, e-plastic is very dirty plastic.
Hmm.
And we want to figure out a way to actually reuse and create domestic solutions for that e-plastic. So we have an e-plastic plant as well, which is running every day and where it's definitely sustainability, probably over profitability, but it's the right thing to do
Hmm.
in being able to really create these domestic solutions. So we things aren't being shipped overseas to Malaysia and where we're able to recover. And, our goal is for OEMs and different corporations to be able to even reuse their own plastics.
That's cool. So as someone who's not familiar, like you said, e-plastic is dirty, but just to explain for folks that like, even myself, I'm curious, like when you say e-plastic, like what do you mean? Like what does that
Well,
represent?
so there's lots of like fire retardants, and especially when you talk about electronic e-waste, that there's different types of plastic. There's ABS, there's polystyrene, there's polypropylene, there's polyethylene. So all of these plastics can be used in different ways, but you have to also be able to separate them. So with our e-plastic plant, we're actually cleaning these plastics. We're cleaning and then we're separating. And then we have an electrostatic machine that actually then is able to separate the ABS and PS that are more usable forms of plastic. So it's being able to clean it, separate it, and then be able to take it to its right home so it can be reused.
Yeah.
It's not a very favorable plastic. Let's put it that way.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And like when you talk about, fire retardant and stuff on electronics, like it makes sense why it's there. But to your point around like, and I wasn't aware, that's really interesting around like I knew there's all the different types of plastics that go into it, having done some stuff on like pet chem feedstock and stuff in the past, but on the backside of that, having to like think about how it's all coming out and how, our computers and all that stuff have different types of plastic in them, even of itself is it's fascinating. It's very cool. Yeah. Do you find then that like, particularly on the plastic, we're just sticking with that for a second, like, are you seeing some really interesting, like, then, people that are then taking that, as a feedstock for their own processes and stuff like that? Like, I'm curious, like, what kind of things do they then get made into? Is it being reused for like computers and stuff again? Or is it like becoming a park bench and stuff? Or are you aware of any of that? I don't know.
In my boardroom, I'm so sorry I don't have it in here with me, but I have a piece of floor tile that is completely made of e-plastic. And there's even discussions like of street signs that were made out of aluminum, but where the e-plastic is so much durable and stronger than the aluminum. So there's lots of different things that people are coming up with. But what's so great with us cleaning and separating is that it can be directly going from here to be able to be pelletized. So it can be reused in many different ways.
Oh, that's so cool. That is fascinating, right? Like it's because and again, people would know this about me. I spend a lot of time in Hawaii, and we try and limit our plastic use as much as we can. Right, we're on an island, but at the same time, because we're on an island, unfortunately, some of the stuff that we sort of use on an everyday basis, like even our like kitchen utensils and things, like we need to look for plastic solutions to a certain extent because like all the wooden ones we buy go moldy instantly and things like that. So like having these durable like plastic kind of alternatives and things like that, like it makes a lot of sense. But if we can not have to generate new plastic every time we do some of that, like amazing. Like
and it's kind of cool because like true recycling really isn't about destroying something. It's really about recovering the materials in a form that we can actually then begin to create something new and be able to use it again.
Yeah, I love that. So I know, as you guys are doing all this different like facilities and you have the different processing plants and facilities and stuff, talk about like some of the different validations and like certifications that you need to go through like with your clients to make sure that like things are destroyed or recycled or refurbished correctly and things like that. Like I assume that process is also, quite like involved and stuff like that as well. Yeah. Anyway,
it's so involved that we actually had to hire a full-time compliance person to be here at CompuCycle because it got to be way, way, way too much for us to handle. But like in the world of in e-waste, there's two major certifications. One is R2V3 and one is e-Steward. So they're two major certifications, and we're one of the very few in the country that have both.
Oh, very cool.
And we have NAID, we're AAA NAID, we're ISO 9001, NAID, ISO 14001, 45001, and most importantly, our newest one is ISO 27001, which is for data security management. So when it comes to certifications, don't get me wrong, they are so important and definitely matter. But I believe the certifications are not enough. That is why we put the processing plant in. because we wanted to be sure that we handle the downstream. So besides batteries, fluorescent lights, and toner cartridges, everything else we receive, we recycle right here on our facility. The batteries, fluorescent lights, and toner cartridges go directly from us to its final downstream. But other electronic recyclers are using multiple downstreams when they don't have that processing plant.
That makes
So
sense.
it is truly what makes us so different. And again, certifications are all so important. It's just, unfortunately, I just don't feel like it's enough.
Yeah.
There's over 2,100 certified electronic recyclers in the country.
Okay.
Only 1% of us have the processing plant. And it is just such an important distinction because it's so important for people to realize the downstreams of where their material goes.
Yeah. And, I love like it, to your point of like that balance between making sure that the companies, CompuCycle and others that are taking e-waste and doing some of this stuff are following the right processes. Because if people don't follow those right processes, then I assume the recycling components of these just don't work properly, right? Like, because then,
Correct.
so it's a waste of time if you don't do it properly. But like, the piece that you're talking about there around like not using the certificates as a checkbox is a really
it shouldn't just be a
interesting
logo on your website. It really should not. It has to be visible in how you operate every single day.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a weird nuance, right? But it's really important. I love that.
It's an expensive nuance too.
Understandably. So I want to switch to the data piece, because to be honest, and you and I've known each other for a little while now, but like it never occurred to me, when we talk about electronic recycling, like again, just the importance of that piece and some of that kind of stuff. So has that, the idea of going through and scrubbing hard drives and all kinds of stuff, like how has that sort of changed and evolved? Like I know you've been at CompuCycle for a while now. I assume, I don't know, has it changed at all in terms of the importance around that?
No, and like, so what's so crazy, just last year, we attended a cybersecurity conference and we exhibited, and there were so many companies that came to us and they were like, what are you doing here? You're an electronic recycler. This is cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And we were like, this light bulb went off and we're like, aha, like, yes, we are here because we are the last critical piece of an effective cybersecurity plan that, corporations can spend millions of dollars protecting their data while their device is connected to their networks, et cetera. But that risk does not disappear the moment that someone unplugs it. It's so important what happens to it afterwards. So, all this, like, you talk about hard drives that have the servers, the laptops, desktops, networking gear, phones, iPads, all of them contain sensitive information on them. So ITAD, which is IT asset disposal, really needs to be viewed as an extension of an organization's cybersecurity and information security program. And it's critical. And this is another big distinction about CompuCycle that I'm so proud of, is that let's talk about like cell phones and iPads. Yeah. That if they're iCloud locked or you can't turn them on, there's data still on those babies. Yeah. So most electronic recyclers will just pass those down to their downstreams. We said, we're going to take the time. We have a heating pad structure that heats these up so we can actually open up and remove the batteries. And then we actually shred those cell phones and iPads that have data on them. So it is, because the last thing you want is like, and it's happened. People's cell phones showing up at nonprofits, at Goodwills or what have you, that should have been recycled the right way, and data being removed, and it wasn't. So it is just so important that regardless if the machine can turn on, off, or that you have passwords unlocked, if it has data, you want to make sure it's going somewhere that can actually shred that material. Yeah.
The phones is such an interesting piece, right? Because there's so many corporations now, like people are used to turning up and you get your laptop, like I said. But now, this was the last corporation I was at, you also get a phone. And it's a nightmare to have to carry 2 laptops and 2 phones around everywhere. Yes. But fine. But to your point, because the company took the data security of all of the stuff that was then happening and knowing that the phone is just an extension of how we work now. But to your point around then, I don't know where my old work phone went. I handed it back in with my computer and all that kind of stuff. But, who knows?
Yeah.
Like, so that's huge. And I like,
Yeah, and it is,
yeah,
it's like just so important for people to realize like who touched your equipment,
yeah,
where did it go, what happened to the data, and where does the material ultimately end up.
yeah.
And so using a company like CompuCycle that has its own processing facility, you don't have to have those
Yes.
concerns because it
Yeah.
happens at one place.
Yeah. Well, and again, the fact that you guys are, even with I've had personal phones and stuff, right? That like they just don't turn on anymore, right? Like, we've all been in that situation. And so the fact that you guys have solved that problem is for companies is huge. And it's great.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm really curious, like, you talked a little bit about education and as you're going out, the cybersecurity conversation's an interesting one and stuff like that. Like, what are some of the things you wish people like were more fluent around or like had more education around, whether it's around the e-waste process, the data piece, all of it? Like, what is the one thing that people are always constantly surprised that you're having to explain to them or teach them as you're talking to everybody? I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Curious.
I think it goes back, and I don't mean to sound repetitive, but I
No?
really do think it goes back to people not realizing that they feel if they drop off their equipment at a certified electronic recycler that and or they get a piece of paper saying it's been recycled responsibly, that that's what's really happening.
Mm.
That you need to know the downstreams of where that material is going. So it is just so crucial, like really, like even for IT people in the major corporations, they just felt if they're using a certified company that their ass is
We're
covered and
good.
they don't have to worry about it. But, even like public companies now, the SEC's made it a ruling that, anything that's been breached or landfilled, um, that they need to be able to report that.
Hmm.
So it's becoming more and more important. But what the corporations don't realize is that they think being certified is just enough and they can use that
Mm.
company and they get a piece of paper that says things were done correctly. You really need to take the time to understand, explore, and review the e-waste company that you're using. What is their process? What is their procedure? Who are their downstreams? And for them to even be able to tell you who those downstreams are.
Yeah.
As if not, unfortunately, it's just a very shady business.
That
And
sucks.
there's so many people that just do not do it the right way. And it's more about the bottom line and just getting more dollars back. But unfortunately, a lot of the time when companies, what I guess what's that, the comment, if something's too good to be true, well, there's maybe a reason why.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not being done the right way or it's being exported.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's so important. And I think your point around the risk and the liability bit, to your point, it's no longer good enough for a company to essentially try and pass that liability on to, that contractor. They need to do that due
Sure.
diligence and actually make sure that they are happy with the services being provided. And again, ask all the right questions and
And
can
yeah,
trace that through. Yeah.
we beg for people to come visit us, come tour,
Okay.
come
Yeah.
see, come. I want you to see, behind the
Yeah.
scenes and what
I
our
love that.
process is. And we really, in most electronic recyclers, I would say you wouldn't receive an invite. We beg our prospects and customers to come see us.
Oh, I love that. Um, there's a certain element of that as well, like, like this, and this is like the stereotype of like going into some sort of like industrial facility, irrespective of what that is something that a lot of people will be like, no, I don't want to, I don't want to do that. But the fact that you guys are inviting people in, it also says something about how you actually run the operations as well, which, is also awesome for people to see and things like that, right? Like, which I
and,
love.
and to
So,
see that it's a secure facility.
yeah.
We put security is paramount. So like
Mm.
we even have a third party security team of 2 people that work at CompuCycle
Oh, I love that.
that are scanning our employees as they come in and out of the building. We
Yeah.
want to make sure that everything that comes into CompuCycle is staying in. And we have access gate controls, we have security cameras, all of our employees are drug tested and background checked. So it is the most important thing is the security of the facility and our trucks. Our trucks are
Makes
all
sense.
GPS monitored. We are able to follow our trucks. We're notified if the gate is open for too long. Like
Mm.
all of this type of things I just are so critical and important when working
Yeah.
with an electronic recycler.
Yeah. No, and it's again, it's things that, some of that stuff would have never occurred to me, even if I was at a company kind of asking those questions and stuff, right? But to your point, like the importance around the certifications, again, not just being a stamp, but actually having something
Yes,
behind them, right? Like that means something and that's awesome. So
absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. So, as we kind of wrap up, like, what's on the radar for you? Like, what's CompuCycle doing? What are you working on? Like, what is Kelly excited about? Yeah, what's coming down the
Okay.
pipeline?
Well, I have to. What I'm really excited about is we have really focused a lot on partnerships and collaborations. And so, one of the things right now that I could not be more proud of is that Houston is actually, our electronic recycling facility has paired up with Goodwill Houston. All
Amazing.
Goodwills are independently owned, but we've created this partnership where all of the IT assets that they are not able to sell in their stores, we actually get that equipment, we process it, and we pay them for the scrap to go back to the mission of their programs, which is to hire
I
and
love that.
to empower people to work. And so that's one thing that's happened. And then the second part is that we've actually worked with an ISD here outside of Houston in Pearland ISD. And
ISD.
we're
What
so
is that?
proud that we created a training facility on site for the kids that are 18 to 22 on the spectrum of autism.
Oh,
We've taught them how to dismantle the equipment. So then we actually then go pick up, and it's their school equipment, their Pearland
wow.
ISD school equipment that they're dismantling. We then pick it up and then we pay them for the scrap value. And then what's been so great is Goodwill, I brought over to Pearland to see the program. They fell in love with it. So now they've incorporated a vocational track for their 18 to 22-year-olds that they work with at all the schools that have disabilities or the spectrum of autism, and teaching them a 12-week internship, 2 weeks of soft skills, and then 10 weeks of training. And then they get put into the Goodwill system to be able to help
Wow.
try to find work. So
Amazing.
this is like, yes, I talk about CompuCycle and circularity and the importance of being circular as a recycler, but now I want to even talk about us being a circular impact for our community,
I
and
love
how
that.
can we make a difference in our communities. And this is something that could be replicated anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah.
So I really hope to be able to expand this program across the United States with other electronic recyclers and Goodwills and schools. So I'm really excited about that. And that's just on the community impact part.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to the future of CompuCycle, we just hired a full-time data security officer and AI information guru,
Love it.
who is working with us to figure out ways to automate throughout our whole beginning to end of
Mm.
our processes and procedures, from the sales side all the way to the production side. So that's really exciting. I do probably feel that we'll have more ability to automate our processes on the line and conveyor belts, and possibly more robots or machines to be able to detect batteries easier,
Very cool.
all that type of fun stuff. But more than anything is, like, I would say that it's however we can grow, but to be able to just make the most of all the resources that we can reclaim from the equipment itself. But to do it again, it's just so important that we're doing it the right way and make sure that we're retiring it the right way, or most importantly, being able to reuse it the right way. So, it's not just old equipment. Like,
Yep.
this all has to be protected. We have to give value back for what can be recovered. And then the materials that shouldn't be wasted need to be done and recycled the right way. And really just technology matters as much as like how we can deploy it. And I think with data centers now, it's going to be even more important for IT asset disposal companies like ourselves to be an important player in the whole strategy and process of data
Yeah.
centers, because you need to be able to retire it properly, to even be able to build and expand it.
Yep.
So, I think we need to be part of so many more conversations than we're currently in, to date.
Yeah. Um, I mean, so cool. And, you guys are doing, you talked about the sustainability bit and stuff like as well. Like, how do we reduce the footprint? We all love our electronics, all sorts, shapes and sizes, right? And so, really thinking about, what that looks like and the impact that you guys are having is so huge. It's amazing. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you so much for your time today. I know I've learned a whole bunch about an area that I was not familiar
Absolutely.
with at all. So hopefully everyone does as well. So,
Yeah, no, please. And if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, please
yep,
feel free. I'm able to answer any questions or any
awesome.
concerns. And I just so appreciate the time to be able to educate people on CompuCycle. And yes, we're based here in Houston, Texas, but we can handle anywhere in the United States.
Amazing.
We've got some great global partners as well, but would love to be able to work with anyone and really tailor solutions. We're not a cookie cutter approach. We actually tailor solutions to our corporation's needs.
Awesome. Very cool. Well,
Yeah.
Kelly, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.